quite the outfit for a student, trying to smuggle something in those loud patterns.
They're bespoke textiles, officer.
Perhaps you should check the manifest again.
You honestly expect me to believe this? What is Fashion Forward International?
It's my scholarship. All the details are right here, officer.
For safety, stood leaning against the wall, arms crossed, gaze already locked on her. "Hold up," he muttered, pushing off the wall. His boots thudded sharply, echoing down the corridor. Zara stiffened. He pointed at her outfit, an asymmetrical denim jacket she had restitched from thrift scraps, paired with wide-leg pants she designed herself. "What are you wearing?" he said. "Looks like you crawled out of a donation bin." A few students snickered. Zara felt heat crawl up her neck. "I'm just going to class," she whispered. "Nah," Ward said, circling her like she was an object. "Students are supposed to look presentable, not whatever this is." His eyes dragged over her clothes with slow contempt. "Kids like you always think rules don't apply." That line sliced through her, the assumption wrapped in it, sharp and familiar. Zara hugged her sketchbook tighter. "Please move." Ward smirked. "Fix your outfit, or I'll take you to the office myself." The hallway fell silent. Then Principal Harrow's voice crackled over the intercom, flat and urgent. "Officer Ward, report to the front office immediately. Now." Ward's jaw tightened. He glared at Zara one last time. She didn't breathe until he walked away. But the moment he turned the corner, a teacher rushed toward her, eyes wide, panicked, and whispered, "Zara, something's happened. You need to come with me. Right now." She froze. The sketchbook slipped from her hand. Zara kept her gaze trained on the floor, counting the scuffed tiles beneath her shoes as she walked. The morning rush was a blur, lockers slamming, sneakers squeaking, half-heard chatter mixing with the constant metallic hum of the fluorescent lights. She clutched her sketchbook to her chest the way some people held backpacks, protective, necessary. She had almost made it to the double doors leading toward the art wing when a sharp voice cut through the hallway. "You, stop right there." Her body froze before her mind did. Officer Kellen Ward's boots echoed toward her, slow, heavy steps, each one intentional. Zara inhaled once, quietly, and lifted her eyes. Ward stood a foot away. His gaze slid down her denim jacket, the stitched patchwork seams, the flared pants she'd tailored herself. He looked at her clothes like they were an offense. "What is this supposed to be?" he said. She swallowed. My outfit." "Outfit?" He repeated the word like a bad taste. "Looks like you rolled through a dumpster and came out wearing the leftovers." Students nearby slowed, pretending not to stare but very much listening. Zara tightened her hold on the sketchbook. "I'm going to class." Ward stepped closer. "Not dressed like that." "It's within dress code," she said softly. He snorted. "Dress code doesn't mean dress like a clown." Her throat tightened. She kept her voice level. "I made these." Ward blinked, then laughed under his breath. "Of course you did." She felt something sink in her stomach, anger or humiliation. She couldn't tell. "I'm not bothering anyone," she said. "You're bothering me," he replied. "Kids like you think rules don't apply." A few students exchanged glances. No one spoke. Ward circled her once, slow, like inspecting contraband. "Fix it, or go home and change. Now." Her fingers dug into the sketchbook cover. "I can't go home." "Then figure it out," he said, dismissive. "Not my problem." Before she could answer, the intercom crackled overhead. "Officer Ward, report to the front office immediately. Now." Ward's jaw twitched. He gave Zara one last look, cold, deliberate. "Don't make me repeat myself next time." Then he walked away, boots hitting the ground with short, clipped thuds. Zara exhaled shakily. The hallway noise resumed around her, rushed and indifferent. She bent down to pick up her pen. She hadn't realized she dropped it. "Zara." She turned. Ms. Cohen stood a few feet away, eyes full of concern. "Come with me," the teacher said quietly. "We need to talk." Zara hesitated. "Is something wrong?" Ms. Cohen shook her head quickly. "No, something important happened, but I wanted to tell you in private." They walked down the quieter wing, away from lingering stays. Inside the art room, the familiar scent of paper and paint steadied Zara's breathing. Ms. Cohen closed the door. "Sit," she said gently. Zara sat today. Ms. Cohen leaned on the edge of the desk. "I submitted your portfolio." Zara blinked. "My, what?" "Your designs, your sketches, everything." Zara's heart thudded. "You didn't? Why?" "I'm not ready. I wasn't planning." "They asked for promising young designers," Ms. Cohen said. "I knew you'd never submit on your own." Zara shook her head, overwhelmed. "Who looked at it?" "A review committee from the Westmore Institute." Zara stopped breathing. "Westmore, the top fashion pre-college program in the region. You're one of only 5 students they're evaluating this month," Ms. Cohen said, smiling. Zara felt the room tilt slightly. "They're evaluating me. They want to see your work in person. Today." Her heartbeat spiked. "Today?" "Yes." Zara's fingers tightened around her sketchbook. For a moment, the thrill lit her ribs, warm, electric. Then Ward's voice echoed back. "Looks like you rolled through a dumpster." The words dug deep, muddying the excitement. Ms. Cohen saw the shift. "Zara," she said softly, "what happened out there?" Zara opened her mouth, but the bell rang, jolting the air. Students began filling the hallway again. Ms. Cohen sighed. "We'll talk later. For now, breathe. You're ready for this." Zara nodded, though her stomach churned. She looked at her hands. Steady outside, shaking inside. The black woman was driving normally, following the speed limit, obeying every signal, and minding her own business on the way to her assignment. The officer behind her had no real reason to stop her, but his bias pushed him to look for one anyway. After trailing her for a short distance, he suddenly switched on his lights and siren. She calmly pulled over, fully cooperative, unaware of the confrontation ahead. As the officer walked up to her window, his tone was already sharp and suspicious. He questioned her presence in the area, demanded documents aggressively, and treated her with unwarranted hostility. She answered respectfully, steady and composed, not revealing her real identity. The officer believed he was dealing with an ordinary civilian, but in reality, he had just initiated a stop that would ultimately expose his own misconduct. The officer stepped closer, posture stiff, convinced he had finally caught someone suspicious. His tone turned sharper, his questions faster, as if pressure alone could force a mistake out of the man. But the man stayed composed, breathing steady, eyes calm behind the frustration silently building. People in the terminal slowed their steps, sensing tension rising. The officer circled him, checking his bag, eyeing his documents, searching for anything that could justify his assumptions. Every second exposed how baseless his behavior really was. Yet he pushed harder, hiding insecurity behind authority. He accused the man of withholding information. He accused him of avoiding eye contact. He accused him of acting nervous. None of it was true. The man stood upright, steady, dignified, his silence more powerful than any defense. The officer demanded he step aside for additional screening. It wasn't a request. It wasn't protocol. It was bias, wrapped in authority. The man complied, knowing the truth didn't need his protection, only time. Because the officer still didn't know who he was speaking to. And with every passing moment, he was walking himself into a mistake he would not forget. The officer led him toward the side inspection area, a narrow hallway with humming fluorescent lights and a cold metal table pushed against the wall. The air felt tighter here, quieter, as if the room itself held its breath. The man set his bag down calmly, while the officer hovered with an authority he hadn't owned. "Empty your pockets," the officer ordered, not looking at him, looking through him. The man complied, each movement measured, controlled. "Wallet, keys, ID badge." A thick silence settled when the badge landed on the table with a soft metallic click. The officer didn't check it, didn't even glance. He was too busy searching for something wrong, something that would validate the suspicion he'd built from nothing. He flipped through the man's notebook, shook his head as if disappointed to find nothing incriminating. "You travel alone often?" the officer asked. "Yes," the man replied, voice steady, "and I know my rights." A flicker, barely visible, passed across the officer's face. Irritation, maybe fear, but he kept moving, rifling through the bag, creating a mess he didn't need to make. Down the hallway, two airport staff paused, whispering as they watched. Pressure was shifting, slowly, silently. Then the officer made his mistake. He lifted the man's ID badge, finally, and froze. His breath caught. His posture changed. Federal investigator. The whole way seemed to tilt. And for the first time, the officer realized he wasn't the one in control. The officer's fingers tightened around the badge as if it burned. His throat bobbed once, a hard swallow. The fluorescent lights above buzzed louder, filling the space between them like static. You didn't mention this, he muttered. I didn't need to, the man replied. Calm, controlled, the kind of calm that comes from knowing exactly where the power actually sits. The officer set the badge down carefully now, too carefully. His earlier arrogance drained from his posture, replaced by a jittery stiffness. Look, maybe we got off on the wrong. Finish that sentence, the man said quietly. The officer's mouth opened, closed. He looked toward the two airport staff in the hallway. They weren't whispering anymore. They were staring openly now, waiting for something to break. The man stepped closer, his voice low but sharp. You profiled me. You detained me without cause. You went through my belongings without protocol. I was just doing my job, the officer stammered. No, the man said. You were doing what you thought you could get away with. Something inside the officer cracked. Panic flickered across his face, quick but obvious. I can explain, he said. We can fix this. Just let me. You're going to call your supervisor, the man interrupted, and you're going to do it now. The officer didn't move. The man's gaze hardened. Or should I make the call? The officer's hand twitched toward his radio, hesitation trembling through him. Down the hallway, one of the airport staff whispered, "It's done." The officer heard it, and his hand finally lifted the radio, fingers shaking. The balance of power had shifted, completely, irreversibly, yet the real consequences had only just begun. ChatGPT can make mistakes. CH. The supervisor arrived with fast, clipped steps, polished boots, crisp uniform, expression sharpened by authority. He scanned the room once, his gaze catching the tension like a wire pulled tight. What exactly is going on here? He asked. The officer didn't answer. His throat locked, his palms sweated against the radio. He stared at the floor as if the tiles could save him. The man spoke instead. Your officer detained me without cause. He searched my belongings, mocked my appearance, and refused to identify the legal reason for interacting with me. The supervisor stiffened. Is that accurate? He asked the officer. I misread the situation, the officer whispered. Misread, the man repeated. You mocked the way I dress. You assumed I didn't belong in the business class line. Then you escalated without provocation. The supervisor's jaw tightened. Officer, step aside. The officer moved back 2 steps, shoulders collapsing inward. He didn't lift his eyes. The supervisor turned to the man. Sir, may I see your identification so I can properly document this? Of course. He handed over the diplomatic credentials, the badge gleaming under the harsh lights. The supervisor froze. Diplomatic Corps. His voice dropped, quieter, strained. Why wasn't this communicated to me immediately? The man raised a single eyebrow. Your officer never asked. The supervisor inhaled slowly, a controlled breath meant to hide the rising panic. Sir, this is a serious breach of protocol. I assure you, internal affairs will be notified. You will have full cooperation. The officer finally lifted his head, eyes wide, skin pale. Please, he said, voice cracking. I didn't know. That's the point. The man cut in. You didn't need to know anything to treat me with basic respect. A silence settled, heavy, final. The supervisor spoke again, tone firm. Officer, hand over your weapon and badge until the investigation is complete. The officer choked on a breath. You're suspending me. No, the supervisor said. I'm removing you from duty pending disciplinary action. The officer's knees nearly buckled. The man watched quietly, expression unreadable. But the message was clear. This wasn't revenge. This was accountability. And the officer had only reached the beginning of it. The man returned to his car, calm but alert. As he drove away, he didn't notice a small device tucked in his pocket. A student had recorded the entire incident. The video now circulated online, first quietly, then explosively. Within hours, comments began to pile up, outrage, disbelief, and demands for accountability. Back at the airport, the officer sat in a small office, staring at his screen. The video had gone viral. His earlier arrogance was gone, replaced by panic. Notifications popped up relentlessly. Internal affairs reports, social media alerts, emails from supervisors, and journalists requesting statements. "What's happening?" he muttered to no one in particular. His fingers shook as he scrolled through comments calling out the bias, mocking his assumptions, and highlighting his misconduct. Meanwhile, the man's phone buzzed. A text from the airport's administration. "We are fully cooperating with the investigation. Your report has been forwarded to internal affairs." He exhaled, controlled, steady. The power had shifted entirely. The officer was summoned to a meeting with the district authorities. His explanations faltered. The video evidence left no room for excuses, no room to manipulate the narrative. Every word he had spoken, every dismissive gesture caught on camera, exposed him in full. The man watched from a distance as the officer struggled under the weight of scrutiny. He did not gloat. He only noted the pattern, bias unchecked, power abuse, and now, finally, consequences. The officer's world, once certain and unchallenged, had narrowed to a single, unavoidable truth. The system he had relied upon to shield him would no longer protect him. And it was only a matter of time before that truth reached every corner of the airport, every official, and the public watching worldwide. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check import. The conference room smelled of polished wood and disinfectant. The officer sat across from a panel of district investigators, his uniform stiff, hands clenched tightly in his lap. He avoided their eyes, knowing that every gesture, every hesitation, would be scrutinized. "Officer Ward," the lead investigator began, voice flat and measured. "We have reviewed the video evidence, witness statements, and your own report. Can you explain your actions?" I thought," he began, then stopped. His voice faltered. "I was following procedure." "Following procedure?" another investigator asked, tapping the table. "Mocking a citizen, detaining her without cause, escalating the situation unnecessarily. These are not procedures. They are abuses of power." He swallowed hard. I didn't intend." "Intent isn't the issue," the lead investigator interrupted. "Impact is. Your actions caused distress, public outrage, and potential violation of federal protocols." Outside the room, news of the internal investigation spread quickly. Teachers, students, and passengers who had witnessed the incident shared their accounts. A quiet chorus of voices grew louder, supporting the man and demanding accountability. Meanwhile, the man himself monitored the situation, calm but resolute. He received updates from the internal affairs team. Every statement he had provided, every detail observed, was being logged meticulously. The officer's confidence, once unshakable, crumbled under scrutiny. His colleagues avoided eye contact, some whispering in the hallways, others shaking their heads. For the first time, Ward felt powerless. The panel concluded the meeting. "You will remain suspended pending final disciplinary action. This is a formal reprimand, and your record will reflect this incident." The officer left the room, shoulders slumped, face pale. The reckoning had begun, and there was no going back. The news broke across the district. Officer Ward had been officially removed from duty, pending termination. Statement from internal affairs, coupled with a viral video, left no room for appeal. His colleagues whispered, avoided him in the hallways, and the public scrutiny made every misstep visible. The man received the notification calmly. He read it once, then set it aside. No celebration, no gloating, just a steady acknowledgement that the system had finally responded. At the same time, the school's principal sent a formal apology to the man's family, acknowledging failures in supervision and systemic bias. Teachers and students expressed support, relief mixing with lingering anger at what had occurred. The man's identity as a federal investigator had forced accountability, but the emotional cost lingered. He reflected on the incident, the humiliation, the threat, the unnecessary escalation. It had left a mark, a reminder that even authority figures could abuse power and that consequences were necessary but not healing in themselves. The officer, now suspended, faced legal review, potential loss of certification, and a career permanently shadowed by misconduct. Every attempt to regain credibility faltered under the weight of evidence. The man returned home, sitting quietly in his living room, sketching notes for his next assignment. Each line, precise and deliberate, reflected control and focus, resilience shaped by confrontation. Justice had been served, not in revenge, not in spectacle, but in measured consequence. Yet he knew accountability alone could not erase the fear, the unfairness, or the lingering tension in every similar encounter yet to come. Still, for now, the balance had shifted. The abuse of power had a cost, and he had witnessed it firsthand. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info. The airport was quieter that morning. The usual rush of travelers had not yet begun, leaving long stretches of polished floors and echoing footsteps. The man walked deliberately through the terminal, past the gate where the ordeal had first begun. His badge was tucked securely in his coat pocket, a quiet reminder of authority exercised correctly, responsibly. He paused at the spot where Officer Ward had first marked him. Sunlight spilled across the tiles, sharp and clean. For a moment, he allowed himself to remember the humiliation, the fear, the power imbalance, but only briefly. He exhaled slowly, letting it go. "Are you okay?" a colleague asked, approaching cautiously. "I am," he said, voice calm. "It's done." Accountability happened. They exchanged a nod. No praise, no celebration, just acknowledgement. He adjusted his coat, checked his notes, and continued toward the terminal exit. The future waited beyond these doors, unpredictable but his to navigate. Every step felt intentional, each one a reclaiming of space, of dignity, of purpose. The encounter with abuse of power had left a mark, yes, but it had also crystallized clarity. Authority was not to dominate, but to serve. Outside, the morning light hit the runway, glinting off the distant plains. He took a deep breath, the cool air filling his lungs. Sketches, reports, missions ahead, all of it under his control now. He smiled faintly, not at victory over anyone, but at the certainty of moving forward. The hallway, the confrontation, the fear, they were behind him, and in that forward motion he found a quiet strength. Resilient, unbroken, ready. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info. Weeks later, the man sat in his small office, overlooking the city skyline. The ordeal replayed in fragments, Officer Ward's aggression, the viral video, the internal investigation, the public response. Each memory carried weight, but also clarity. A colleague knocked softly. "You've been handling this well," she said. "Most would be shaken." He glanced at her, calm. Handling it isn't about being unshaken. It's about understanding what actually matters. Accountability, truth, fairness, those are the pillars. Fear and anger are temporary. She nodded, recognizing the quiet authority in his words. "And what about Ward?" "He faces the consequences," he replied. "That's the system working, finally. But the lesson isn't in his downfall. It's in making sure such behavior doesn't happen again." He opened a fresh notebook, jotting down notes for upcoming assignments. Lines of strategy, plans for oversight, reminders of vigilance, all detailed, precise. Every word a commitment to justice, tempered with wisdom. Outside, the city moved on, unaware of the drama that had unfolded, yet shaped subtly by it. The man leaned back, letting the sunlight warm his face. The confrontation had been a crucible. It tested dignity, patience, and resolve. And though the scars remained, they were not weaknesses. They were reminders of endurance, clarity, and moral certainty. He closed the notebook. The future stretched ahead, unknown but navigable. And he was ready. The hallway, the terminal, the office, they were behind him. His focus now was forward, guided by resilience and principle. Justice had been served, and he would ensure it stayed alive. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check I. Months later, the man prepared for a new assignment, overseeing federal compliance in multiple districts. His badge and credentials rested neatly in a leather case beside him. This time, there would be no surprises, no assumptions, no unchecked authority to confront. A junior officer approached. "Sir, are you ready for the briefing?" He nodded, calm and precise. "Yes. Let's ensure every procedure, every interaction, is fair. That's our responsibility first." The young officer hesitated. "And what about Ward?" He didn't flinch. "Ward's consequences are a reminder, not my burden. Focus on what we can control. That's all that matters." Outside the window, the city sparkled under early morning light. Traffic flowed, planes taxied, people moved with purpose, unaware of the invisible vigilance now guiding them. He picked up his case, adjusted his coat, and stepped into the waiting car. Every movement was deliberate, every thought grounded in responsibility. The past incident remained in his memory, but it no longer held him. It had shaped him, honed his resolve, and clarified the lines between justice and abuse. As the car pulled away, he looked toward the horizon. Challenges awaited, policies to enforce, abuses to prevent. But he felt ready, calm, focused, and determined. The hallway, the terminal, the confrontation, all had passed. Ahead lay work, purpose, and a commitment to fairness that would define every step. The man was moving forward, carrying lessons hard-earned, wielding authority responsibly, and ensuring that justice would no longer be optional. ChatGPT can make mistakes. See, the man returned briefly to the city where it all began, the airport terminal, the same hallways, the same fluorescent lights. Nothing had changed physically, but the weight of memory lingered in the air. He paused at the gate where Officer Ward had first singled him out, fingers lightly touching the edge of the counter. A young traveler brushed past him. "Excuse me," she said, unaware of the history around her. He smiled faintly, watching her move confidently. It reminded him why he had endured the ordeal, to ensure fairness for everyone, even those too young to understand the risks they might face. A colleague approached, handing him the updated policy documents. "Your recommendations have been implemented," she said. "The terminal staff are trained, and officers are briefed on bias prevention." He took the papers, nodding. "Good. That's what matters. Prevention, not retaliation." He looked once more at the empty hallway. No anger, no fear, only clarity. Every confrontation, every threat, every moment of uncertainty had shaped him into someone who could wield authority with responsibility and integrity. "Ready to go?" his colleague asked. He nodded. "Always." As he walked toward the exit, sunlight spilled across the floor, illuminating the path ahead. The lessons remained, but they no longer held him back. They propelled him forward, steady, vigilant, resolute. The chapter closed on him leaving the terminal, not with triumph over Ward, not with vengeance, but with something far more enduring, mastery of self, mastery of responsibility, and a quiet satisfaction that justice, when exercised properly, had finally been done. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info.